Well, good evening, everybody. I'll let you get settled in. Some folks are still walking in, and I'm just kind of getting settled in. This is a little bit of a different setup for me. I am just recovering or sort of just battling through a bit of a knee injury, and I realized that standing from 9 to 2 today was not what my knee wanted. And standing involved actually being in this very room with our seniors today, giving them their dose of this information. And if you've come to our programs in the past, or even know me like my colleagues, I literally want to just jump out of my seat. It's not normal for me to sit here, but I have to listen to my knee right now and try to recover in time for another round of those group sessions tomorrow. So it was a lot of moving around on this stage today to keep those seniors engaged for 82 minutes. I think we did a pretty good job. We had 3 group sessions today, 3 more tomorrow, and 2 on Monday. So what I'm talking about are these group sessions that we're running with our seniors to go over the process of applying to college. So tonight's kind of your parental dose of it, although I see a few students in the audience. Thank you guys for coming, and maybe some are watching, but we give a little bit of a different dose to them when they join us during the day. So we're going to get underway with our program here. A couple housekeeping things. So for the last few years, we have been live streaming all of our programs. So I'm talking to those of you in the audience right now and folks watching from home through our HCTV YouTube stream. So and the ability to give them the opportunity, the opportunity to ask questions at the bottom of every slide is just a short link, HCRHS question. You just have to type the whole link in, case sensitive, to any browser, and it comes to a simple Google form where you can submit a question. So I'll be looking at all of those at the end. That gives our folks at home the ability to ask questions. You can do it that way as well from here in the room, and we're going to have just about a 5-10 minute Q&A at the end. So I'll take in-person questions and see what's come through our form. So a couple introductions. We've got our counseling team here, and I'll just ask them to kind of wave because you will get to see them at some point. I'll go ahead and start with our senior counseling team, Carly Isabella Murin, Jacqueline Devlin, and Julie Blake. Those are the 3 counselors that have been serving the class of 2026 during their time here, and break that class up into thirds. So there's their alphabet breakdown. Another one of our counselors, Mariana Cordova, serves our multi-language learners. And so she's got a portion of the senior class of all classes. Our counseling supervisor, Jen Wagner, is here tonight. And then myself, Jen Nectarline, College and Career Counselor. And my role here is to work with our students. I do serve the student body, all 4 grade levels, but really come into the fold more about halfway through junior year. So did anybody attend our 11th grade college planning night last January? Okay, so that's kind of the middle part of this process. But maybe you even joined us in the underclassmen years. We do run an early college planning night. Anybody remember that one? Probably December, and we open that up to our 9th and 10th grade families. So we kind of do this 3-part series, and you made it to part 3. So here we are at senior year at our college planning night, and we do this, you'll see high schools run a program like this sometimes somewhere in the fall. We don't really waste any time here. We've been consistently holding this program the second week of school, our group sessions with the students second, third week of school, because we know there's people who are ready to embark on the process, and there's going to be seniors who are going to tackle this a couple months into the year, just depending on when their deadlines are. So the information is here. Nothing is terribly time sensitive. I mean, we are working obviously with deadlines, but we tell the students that there's a lot of flexibility. You don't have to jump on this process right away if you're not ready. There's an opportunity to apply to college later in the school year, but we deliver the resources now so that everybody has them when they're ready. All right, so a couple of things we're going to do tonight. I always, if you've been coming to these programs or have watched them before, I do really like to go over the previous year. I like to talk a little bit about what we experienced with last year's class, because I do think that can either set the tone in some cases or deliver some good historical data for us about what we can expect with the next class. So I'll talk a little bit about what went on with our seniors last year and where we saw them going and what they saw them doing, some anticipated trends for this coming year, so things that are going on in the college admissions world, the world in general, that are going to impact our applicants. And then we're going to dive into sort of what we're talking about with the seniors. I'm not going to go into the nuts and bolts of the process like I am with them because they are the ones that are doing it, whereas you're more the oversee and the supporter. But I'm going to talk about what we are telling them. You know, here's a process we're giving you, step by step, on how to successfully apply to college. So I'll go over that, where we start with that process, a couple things about different admission plans, and then you're going to hear from Julie, Jacqueline, and Carly. They're going to take a few slides here in the middle, and then we'll close out with a little housekeeping, some financial aid information, and then we'll certainly take those questions from those of you at home that are using the link on each slide, typing that in, or any questions in person, okay? So a little bit about last year's class. I think this is important, especially if you're new to the college planning process or new to the statistics of our school. We've definitely seen a bit of a shift in what our students are doing after high school. At least in my 18 years here, there's been a definite shift. So for the last few years, we've seen a fairly steady number of students pursuing four-year college, a very slight dip, but we also have to remember that at one point we had classes of 800, and now we're looking at classes of closer to 500. So things are changing. Economic times are changing. Students' interest and opinions of what's appropriate for them after high school is changing. When I started 18 senior classes ago, college was on a lot more students' minds, and now students are exploring other alternative pathways after high school like never before. And that's not a Hunterdon Central trend or a regional trend. That is a nationwide trend. So we are responding to that, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what we're doing for that. So last year, we collected 560 survey responses. The graduation survey that I run here is a requirement for graduation. They will not get a cap, gown, and all the goodies until they do it. So you set something up like that, and you get that survey done. So last year, we saw 68% of the class, which hovered around the same the year before, head to four-year college. And with classes of 560, 550 is kind of where we are this year. That's still a lot of students pursuing four-year college. So we're sending students to still over 150, 160 different schools across the US, Canada, and now we're moving across the pond a little bit. So the UK interest is growing, and it's kind of exciting to see. We have 18%, which has stayed really consistent for many years, heading to two-year college. Obviously, our primary two-year college is Raritan Valley, but just depending on where some students live in the county or where they might be moving to following graduation, they might head to Mercer County College, CCM, County College of Morris, Middlesex, different places like that. So our other percentage is what's getting really interesting. When I started here, again, this is almost 2 decades now, that never left the single digits. The students going off to higher education, whether it was 2 or 4 year school, was definitely 90% or higher. So that growth in the other percent is that population and that nationwide trend of students saying, college is just not my next step. It's not going to be community college for me. It's not going to be four-year school for me. I'm going to work. I'm going to go to trade school. I'm going to do something different. So just a little breakdown for us. That was almost 80 students. And again, you know, we collect this data. We try to get the most accurate data, but we're working with 560 17 and 18-year-olds, and who are like, some are like, I just want to get the survey done so I can get my cap again. And they're kind of rushing, but we really do try to capture accuracy, especially for that other population, because it's really important that we know what they're doing. And I focus on this because my guess is a lot of you are here tonight to hear about the four-year college process. Your students are packing up, they're going away, but two-year college might become an option for them later on, or perhaps another pathway. So of that group, we saw pretty consistently, we have typically about 10 or maybe under students enlist in the military. So I think it was actually 9 last year. And again, that's a decision that could change after they leave here and move through their summer. Trade school took about a dozen or 14 trade school apprenticeships, things like that. The number that's increasing is the number going into employment. So it's the students that are leaving high school and going directly into the workforce. So they're either taking what was a part-time job in high school and they're turning it into full-time, or they're leaving here in June and saying, I'm going to live at home, but I'm going to make some money, I'm going to earn benefits, and I'm going to find a 40-hour-a-week job. That might involve what we don't actually know, which is perhaps they're taking a class or two at community college, or they're coming back and doing adult ed polytech, but they have told us their plan after high school is just to go right to work. So that's where we're seeing the shift. And so we've responded to that. You're going to hear a little bit more about different pathways, but we've enhanced that programming to help our students that are looking at alternate pathways. Because I think we do a lot of good work here in prepping students for the four-year college process, which is what tonight's mostly about and what our group sessions are about. But come November, we really start to work in some of those other programs. So I like this to provide the next snapshot. If you're new to the area, new to the college process, maybe new to higher education in general, higher education in America, I think it's important to know where our students go. So college, we're sending a little over 50 students. And again, that can fluctuate in the summer. Students might leave here and say, I'm going to work. But in the summer, they realize, I think I'm going to register for some classes, and they become a full-time RVCC student. Just so you know, that number used to be over 80 or 90. So again, there's that drop in community college and the increase in other areas. And again, we have classes that are smaller than they used to be. Rutgers got 45 of our students. Our state university has become increasingly competitive. We're going into our third year now with Rutgers University accepting the Common Application. When they joined the Common App 2 cycles ago, this is the third, they received a lot more applications than they intended, and they don't exactly grow overnight. So what do? You become more selective. And that got really tough for us to see some of our really strong students not get a seat at our state university. It brought up our numbers at places like TCNJ, Montclair, and Rowan, which is great because those are fantastic state school options. But it is really important for students and parents to remember that Rutgers University, New Brunswick, I'm speaking about, has become increasingly competitive. And SCORE will give you, SCORE, our college and career planning software, will give you the most updated data. So we're being very transparent with students and making sure they understand that if Rutgers is on their list, we're being very clear on whether or not it's going to be a good chance for them or it's going to be a reach for them. The College of New Jersey got 15, which was great. And then out of state, Delaware got 13. So that left column are the colleges last year that got our students in double digits. Looking at the right side, nice group going to Rowan with 9. 8 going each to Penn State and Virginia Tech. These numbers are not terribly different than typical years. I mean, we're always sending a lot of students to these schools. Virginia Tech, we saw a little bit of a spike. This next line is interesting because these are very interesting numbers to me, who studies this data and has seen 18 years of classes here now. We sent 7 students each to the University of Maryland, University of South Carolina, University of Tampa, Pitt, and Lehigh. Okay, so I could not tell you a single year where we sent 7 students to Lehigh. Lehigh is a fantastic school, but it is a very pricey school that is not, I would say from my experience, overly giving in aid, merit or financial aid. So that was really surprising, especially in years where I'm actually seeing our students become more cognizant of money. Yay, I'm hoping you guys are having those conversations, but we are telling them, like, you can't set up a list of colleges where every school is $90,000 a year and expect to get money from all of them. So that was really surprising to us. So great relationship being built there. We've always sent students there, but never 7. Pitt, pretty typical for us. South Carolina, yes. Maryland, yes. But we had a little bit of a spike with University of Tampa. And then that last line, 6 each to Rider, University of Rhode Island, and Syracuse. So again, nothing too surprising there. And then just in front of me, I like to run data. I just have fun with it. We sent 5 students each to, again, names that are familiar: Seton Hall, Montclair State, Quinnipiac. Here is a different one: Rochester Institute of Technology. RIT got 5 of our students last year. That's on there. RIT alum, there it is. All right. So we got our cohort going there. And then this was interesting. There's years this was 0. We sent 5 to Rutgers Newark. So there's the reaction and the change is coming when New Brunswick isn't isn't the one, they're going to Newark. And I can tell you, most of them are going to Newark with the intention of hoping to reapply and have a decent shot at New Brunswick. It's not like if you're familiar with the Penn State system, it's not a 2+2 deal, like spend 2 here, get in here. It's going to be a full reapplication as a transfer student. And yeah, they're under the Rutgers umbrella. Could it help a little? I hope. Maybe someone from Rutgers is listening, but these are kids who are likely not intending to spend 4 years at Rutgers Newark. I think Rutgers Newark is fantastic. If you're familiar with it, it's right near NJIT. It's got a whole good vibe going on there with higher education, but 5 each to those, 4 each to Monmouth, in-state, private, fantastic school, but also a little on the pricey end. 4 at JMU. So James Madison continues in Virginia to be a strong school for us. Ohio State got 4, University of Scranton got 4, and NJIT in Newark got 4. So those were all of our schools getting 4 and up. And I don't know why I use 4. 4 to me, it's a good number. You know, you start to get into 3s and the 2s, you have a much longer list we're working with. But 4 is, to me, that's trending. 4 of our students going to one school, and certainly more than that is, I think, worthy of talking about. So maybe some of these names are on your lists or on your radar, but this is what we have, and I think that it lays a good foundation, I mean, for future students. I think the Lehigh trend is really interesting and the Tampa trend. So we'll see what this year brings. I was asked, by a couple students, parents, like, what's trending already this year? It's a little early to tell. I do like to run that data as we get closer to October. Nothing's really jumped out so far. Again, we're like just getting underway with the process. So once these students start building their active lists in SCORE, we'll be able to get a better handle on what they're all looking at. So a couple trends. We are obviously in a decline for high school enrollment and graduation. I don't really know what huge impacts that's having. I haven't seen anything significant yet in admission selectivity, but colleges are definitely thinking about it. I mean, financially for them, space, they want to make sure they still get the applicants so they can still be selective, so they can still build great classes. So with these numbers, if you're studying enrollment trends and nationwide and all of these things, there are colleges that are worried. They tend to be the smaller schools, the ones who've, over the years maybe had some financial trouble. You hear, if you follow higher education news, I certainly do, colleges that just can't survive or they merge with others, and they, they're hanging on. And I do concern myself there's a couple in Jersey that are hanging on. They're worried about the enrollment trends. They were barely making their class before, and that's a problem for institutions. So we're seeing that. We hope it helps our students. I mean, when you're worried about making your class, you admit more, right? We didn't see huge change with that last year, but we'll certainly see what this year brings. The test optional movement just continues to be something that is just wildly popular. I mean, since the pandemic, we're like 5-6 cycles into this now. Prior to 2020, there were definitely schools that were test optional, but so many more are now. And then a couple shifted back after 2020 and said, 2021, 22, nope, that was fine during the pandemic, but we need your scores. And your students know who those are. But when you do present the option of saying you don't have to submit test scores, you've made a good number of high school students very happy. They take the test. They come on a Saturday morning, they put all their energy into it, they might take it twice, maybe 3 times, and you look at the scores, and you look at your transcript, and you sit with us, and we're like, you gotta go test optional. The score is just not helping you, your transcript is speaking volumes, don't submit, and that's perfectly fine. If a college is test optional, they're test optional. They're gonna look at everything else, and they're not gonna look at scores if you choose not to send them. But what it's doing is it's opening up more students to apply to more selective schools. So if an Ivy League school is no longer test optional, but I have a stellar transcript, well, now more students are gonna apply. So you have enrollment going down, but you have students increasing these college lists. Like, it is not terribly uncommon for me to have more students applying to 15, 20 schools, because it's like, well, let me just throw it out and see what sticks, because I'm not a great test taker, but I'm really good in the classroom, and they've got a great transcript to show it. So it's really opening up to a much wider range of applicants at some really selective schools. So we have a couple schools with applications going up, and selectivity rates are staying pretty stable. We didn't have any major surprises last year. I think the one I had to pay attention to the most was Rutgers. I mean, I thought maybe things will level out after that first wild year where they had a 60% spike in applications, but it did not. And last year was tough. I mean, this is like well over, 70,000 applications. So when you join the Common App, you make it easier for students to apply, and students came in applying. So it is still our state university. It's still a place that we have a great relationship with. I think they took the right students. There were a couple at the end of the year really trying to show interest and get off the wait list, and for some it worked out and some it didn't. But we're seeing fairly stable selectivity even with schools like Rutgers where applications are up. Cost is crazy. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. We're talking about it with the students. The cost of higher education is really frightening. And I do think this is why we simply have students taking a step back going, do I need to do this? Is this worth it for me for what I want to do in the next 5 years, 10 years? I'm ultimately, for the vast majority of professions and careers, going to believe that it is worth it to get your baccalaureate degree and to go to college. But, it's very expensive, and the funds are just not there for some students. There is help. There is definitely help. We have students who earned, the need-based aid that they deserved, but not many students saw that gap fully closed. So, you've got tuition, you've got what you can afford, and you've got the help in between. And there was still students being gapped, $20,000, $30,000 a year from a 90K school. And they said, Mrs. N, what do? I got $55,000 in need-based aid, but it just wasn't enough. And those are students who had to make really difficult choices last year. So this is where they say, it's just not worth it. I'm going to go to community college, or I'm going to go ahead and work for a couple years and then figure this thing out. So this is what we're seeing. Nothing really wildly outrageous. I mean, these are some of the things we've been experiencing for a couple of years. We just do our best here to respond to it. So one of the first things I tell our students when we talk about this process is please make sure you have a New Jersey state school on your list. And I get some of those like blank stares. Well, no, I'm leaving. I'm out of here. I'm not applying anywhere in state. I'm out of state. I want to leave. I grew up here. Time to move on. And I say, what happens when it's March or April and you've gotten in all these schools, you did really great, the average cost of them is $70,000 a year, you got a scholarship for $25K a year, which feels really good, so now we're down to $55,000 a year. They threw a little $5,000 loan offer at you, but we're still at $55,000 a year and you can't afford it. Don't you wish there was an option on your list that was $20,000 a year or $25,000 a year so you could sit down and really logically think of a plan? So that's why we talk to them about state schools. And they're probably thinking, well, Rutgers, that's going to be really tough. It doesn't have to be Rutgers. We have TCNJ, we have Rowan, we have Stockton, we have Montclair, Ramapo, Kane. There are fantastic schools in New Jersey. And they all hover around that same price in the low 30s. And then you throw in a little bit of state aid because they're going to reward you for staying in state because they want to keep you, maybe a scholarship, maybe some outside scholarships, and now we're getting to numbers that are a little bit more reasonable than $55K. So we're trying to encourage them to keep one New Jersey school in the mix. All right. So in our college planning groups with them, we are going over very, very specific information. So we're going to shift gears a little from trends and kind of data and talk about this actual process. So the big question is, where do we start? And I say that, where do we start? Where do we start with the application process? Because we've started. We started with our early college planning research and all of that back in underclassmen years. If you didn't really touch on it, that's okay. But we really got it going in junior year. So we tell the kids, we're not meeting with you in these groups this week to talk about how to build a college list. We're past that phase now. And we delivered that information last year to them. The hope is that they got the ball rolling. And if they didn't, they are going to need to catch up at this point, and really work on their college list, work on where they want to be, what they're looking for in a school, okay? Because we are really getting underway right now with applying because we are up against deadlines. So we begin with organization. We tell the students, you do whatever method works for you, okay? It can be a spreadsheet with maybe the help of a parent who's good with spreadsheets. These kids are pretty good with those Google Sheets, though. I've seen some of them. They're impressive. It could be something in the phone, a notes app. Some of the kids are finding apps through the App Store or the Organized College. they have to do what works for them. It could be a big wipe-off board at home you're all looking at. It could be in a binder. It doesn't matter. It has to work for them. They have got to get organized, okay? They've got to figure out where they're applying, what deadline dates they're trying to meet, and take it from there, okay? I'm also gonna remind them, and I'll mention to you, back in June, as we ended them in junior year, we sent out a pretty comprehensive summer college planning email, and it went to parents as well. That was the driver of, hey, if you wanna work on this process in the summer, this is what you should be doing. And we sent reminders of that throughout the summer, and I held 4 workshops on filling out the Common App. And through those 4, I saw about 150, 160 people. So they were thinking about it in the summer, and we told them, you can come back to school in September and be really prepared by doing the following things in the summer. And we're seeing evidence that many did that. If they did not, then they're just gonna be moving a little quicker right now to get caught up. So getting organized, a list, deadlines, a good place to start. And then we move into the nitty-gritty. All right, now I'm going to bring up a document, and I tell them when the document comes up, this is what we spend the 80-minute blocks doing with them, is I tell them, don't get scared, okay, but this is it. Everything you need to know about the next couple of months is in this document. Now, I'm not going to go over it with you all the same way I'm going over it with them, because I want them to do it. I want them to take the steps. I want them to do the work because this is their process. But we spend a lot of time in this document with them. So we ran 3 sessions today, 3 tomorrow, 2 on Monday. Every senior gets a pass. They can pick a time to come, and they come and learn this college application process with us. So we go over with them that we've divided this into 3 chunks. We chunk it out. We make it organized. First thing you got to do is prepare yourself. You got to make your list. You got to get on SCOIR. SCOIR, that's our college and career planning software. They've had an account since freshman year. You got to get your list built up in there. You got to get organized. Know your deadlines. Try to go for a New Jersey state school. So we're spending some time on that first step. And I asked them, raise your hand if you've already done step 1. And I would say about 80% of the hands go up, 85%, you know, and then the ones who are like, yeah, I did that, but they don't raise their hand, you know. I need the audience participation. So most have done this because we've been talking about this since junior year. They had to come to a college planning group in junior year. So they all sat through our presentation in January. They sat through another presentation in May, and they got countless emails about how to prepare for this process. The next thing they have to do is start working on their applications. So open up a Common App account. Common application is taken by 1,100 colleges. So the chance of them having a list of schools that all take the Common App is pretty good. And then we say, raise your hand if you've created your Common App account. And another 80 to 90% of the hands go up in these groups we're running, okay? So if they're not telling you they're doing it, they're doing something. I believe them, okay? Because this is all stuff we've been talking about with them since last year, okay? And then we tell them there's just one little job you have to do in SCOIR, and it's signing a FERPA release. And that was sent out last week, and I'm running reports every day in SCOIR. They're getting it done. It's a pop-up that comes up right when they log in their account. They can't miss it. They can't get past it. And we tell them how to do it. So we tell them, you know, I want you to raise your hands if you've done 1, 2, and 3. And again, you know, I got 70% of hands go up. And they're like, oh, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm moving along. And we go, you're in a great place. So we get them prepared for the process of actually starting to request documents, you know, because they're doing their part. They're applying to college, but we have a part. We have a part to help them complete their applications, and that's sending out transcripts, letters of recommendation from counselor and teachers. So that's coming next. And then we go in to that, and there's a lot of lines here, and there's some bold and underlining, and these kids know me, Mrs. Nectarline and her highlighting. But listen, I gotta drill it home on how to do this. I have visuals, we do demonstrations, and we tell them, this is what you need to do to start requesting your documents. Because the only way you're gonna get a college admissions decision is if you have a completed application. So we go through this step by step with them. Now, this document is going to be shared out with our seniors on Monday, and it will also go to our website. So if you're like, I want my hands on that document because I wanna sit with them and do it, go right ahead. But I do ask you to let them take the lead. Okay, let them take the lead because this is very doable. It's very manageable for them to take each step. And if they do need assistance, they just have to seek us out and we will help them with it. Okay, this process and procedures, this document, we've been using this for years here and have successfully put thousands of students through this process. So we know this works. Okay, we teach them how to request their teacher recommendations. Up until this point in time, the only thing they had to do, and they were told back in January of junior year, was to approach 2 teachers verbally and ask them for recommendations. There are definitely some lingering ones out there who did not get to ask anyone last year, and they're sort of going around right now to teachers as seniors going, would you still write me a recommendation? And it'll work. It will all work out. But this was a task we gave them in January with many reminders, again in May with many reminders. So they knew they had to do this. Now they have to formally request those letters on SCORE, and there's screens and easy ways to do it. They have to request official, oh, and let me just, because I went over it, we teach them how to request a transcript and how to request a counselor's letter of rec and a teacher's letter of rec. So those are the main components that they need to start requesting in the coming weeks, okay? We get down here to requesting test scores. So if a student is applying to colleges with scores, meaning they're not going test optional, they're sharing their scores, we tell them how to go on College Board and do that. All right, so that's the body, that's the middle part. We've done the prep, now we're doing the requesting, and we close out this 8-step process with kind of the tracking. How do you know all these things are actually getting sent for you? It's all available in SCORE. So there is a SCORE app, and of course they all have it on their desktop, on their computer. And they're familiar with it. They've had a SCORE account since freshman year. Last year and junior year, we're like, you guys really got to get comfortable in SCORE because you're going to be using it probably daily in senior year. So they're comfortable. In fact, when groups were ending today, kids were opening up their Chromebook, they're going in, they're doing their part. So we are going to turn on the ability to start all this requesting on Monday afternoon. We purposely wait until we get a chance to teach the process to everyone, okay? A couple things down here that I think are really helpful. We show these in our groups, and I do think when we show this, it starts to help students understand, okay, so what do I need to do? What do you need to do? What's everybody need to do? This is what they're responsible for. They're responsible for their applications. Hunterdon Central does not submit their apps. We don't have any part in their applications. And it's funny because some of them say, you mean you can't see in my Common App? I go, I have nothing to do with your Common App. Common App is a separate entity. I can't get in your account. I can't see your account. We've guided you on how to do it because we made a very comprehensive guide, and we started sharing that back in June on how to fill out the Common Application. Tips, tricks, all of the help. That's what my workshops were all summer. So this is how you do the Common App. So you're responsible for your applications and anything that goes with those, like the essays or paying the application fees, that's the student, okay? The student is responsible for these next 2 things. This is, to you, might not make sense, but it will make sense to them. Moving colleges to different parts of SCORE, that's what initiates requests. They know how to do this. They're responsible for requesting their teacher recommendations, their test scores, and they're responsible for this. This is those brag sheets that we put out back in January. You might have been asked by your student, hey, I got to fill out these forms for my counselor. We informally call them brag sheets, but they're questionnaires that were given back in January and due in May. Yes, there are some out there lingering. Not all of our counselors have them all, but those brag sheets are going to be in support of the student's letter of recommendation from the counselor. How many of you parents out there remember filling out the parent? Oh, goodness, thank you. So you did it. They did it, you did it, and everyone's good. If they didn't do it yet, that is an absolute must to get done as soon as possible. And then there's something else we're teaching them called STARS. STARS stands for Self-Reported Transcript and Academic Record Service. There are about 40 to 50 colleges that participate with STARS, and it's a platform students have to go on, create an account, and self-report their transcripts. So they're going to enter their courses and grades basically through high school. The platform was created as a way for large institutions to, rather than receive 70,000 different transcripts from across the globe, to see 70,000 students' grades in the same format on a system that somebody created. So that's all student responsibility. Counselors, what are the counselors in charge of? Submitting the transcript, of course, once it's requested, their recommendation, They'll submit once it's requested. And then sometimes we have additional forms that colleges ask us to fill out. The kids don't even know about them. They're just different things we have to do that kind of go along with transcripts and their school report forms. So that's a counselor responsibility. Teacher responsibility, upon request, the teachers will complete and submit the recommendations through SCORE. And then parent responsibility. So I go over this with the students and I tell them, I'm going to talk to your parents tonight, or we have talked to your parents. We'll tell them that tomorrow. And of course, those of you listening from home. So, parent responsibility, guardian responsibility will be different in every family. And we respect that, and we respect you doing what works best for your family. But if there's a place you can be involved, certainly the financial process, the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA, will be opening up in October. We have a financial aid night. I'll talk about that at the end. But that's a place you can help. That FAFSA stuff's going to go over their heads a little bit. They could use a little help filling out the FAFSA. Help in getting organized. You know your child much better than we do, even though we've spent a few years with them. You know what they need help with. You see their bedroom or maybe the inside of their car. And so you know where they're at. You know where things are, or maybe not. And you know where they might need help with organization. So maybe helping them get that chart going or get that spreadsheet going if that's your area. And then this last one, we're going to bring Julie up in a little bit here because she's done this process to talk to you a little bit about just general supporting your child through the process and where you can really be helpful there. All right, so that's our kind of who does what guide. This next chart, this is a big one. This is where we start to see them go, okay, I think I get it now. The light bulb kind of goes off because as we're teaching them the process, we know they're thinking, well, wait, I'm submitting my application, you're submitting my transcript, my letters. Wait, how's all this going to work? How's it going to get there? Well, it's going to get there. Oh, does something have to go first? No. Okay. We tell them the order in which things get to the college does not matter. It does not matter. So we have some students who clicked submit in the summer. We told them, please don't do that. Just wait till we get back to school. There's no rush. You're going to learn some things from us. But some students got really excited and they clicked submit in the summer, okay? So their applications are sitting at those colleges right now, but there's nothing from the high school. We weren't open, no one was here to send anything, and we are just getting in that process now. So it's fine that the application is there and the transcript's gonna arrive in a couple weeks, months, by the deadline, and connect with it, okay? And the opposite is fine too. It is totally fine for that student to go on SCORE, request their counselor's letter, their teacher letter, their transcripts, and for those people to get those things done and submit them, and then the student applies 3 months later. That's fine too. Okay, so the order in which things get to the college does not matter, okay? So if your kids are sitting at home going, I can't click submit, Mrs. Blake didn't send my transcript yet, you tell them, no, you can click submit. Mrs. Blake will send it when she's ready by the deadline. All right, that concept is very challenging for the students, so we made this chart. All right, we got things coming from 3 different places. We've got things coming from the student, which is the application, the essays, the fees. That's their responsibility. We have things coming from Hunterdon Central, transcript, counselor letter, teacher letters, a couple extra little reports we have to do. And then we have scores, if you're applying with scores. And they're going to come from College Board or ACT. 3 things coming from three things coming from 3 different places, all right? All through electronic means. All of that together makes a completed application. And the order in which all those different things get to the college is completely irrelevant. It does not matter as long as it's all there by the deadline. And that can be literally the day of. And I told them today, we have a lot of seniors with early deadlines, October 15th, November 1st. The crunch between today and November 1st is wild, but we do it every year, okay? So I told them this year, okay, so if you're sitting around finalizing that application on November 1st, that Saturday, that's you. You're going to timestamp that. And if we send something out because maybe we're still figuring it out on Saturday, November 1st, although I hope we're not and we're done by the 31st, that's fine too. It's fine if things get sent on the deadline. And with the amount, the volume we have leading up to the big deadlines, it is very possible that's going to happen. Do not fear. It's time-stamped as long as it's time-stamped on the deadline, okay? And this happens every year, all right? So that's a completed application. That's what we're looking for them to get to, okay? So we have a part here They've just got to get the requests initiated, and then they kind of go back and work on their part. We are not expecting students to submit applications a month in advance, which is when some of these requests have to be made. Okay, so they're doing their part and we're doing our part, and we are teaching them step by step how to do it all. Okay? All right, so at the bottom of this procedures document, we just throw in a lot of FAQs, a lot of things that come up year after year. What do I do with this? The college doesn't have my stuff. That's the big one. It didn't get there and SCORE says you sent it. We show them how to go and SCORE and track everything. And then the craziness comes like in November, December. They're like, the college says that you didn't send my transcript, but SCORE says you did. What does that mean? And we just have all kinds of advice in here about what to do. What do I do if I have a teacher, or what if I have somebody outside of Central writing me a letter? You know, I got a counselor, I got teachers, but I also have my boss, or I have my soccer club coach, or my pastor's going to write me a letter. That's fine. We have a process for submitting outside letters, and that's all linked here. We talk a little bit more about that STAR system. This one, Mrs. Nectarline, the essay is optional. Do I do it? That's a one-word, easy answer. If you are being given an opportunity to share something with a college, you take advantage of it. Fee waivers, we talk about how to get those. We talk about students who are applying early decision. That's that binding agreement. Applying to one college through a binding agreement. How do you handle that? So just, and all kinds of other little FAQs are in here, and we consistently add. It's a 7-page document. Okay, but it's the entire process in one. And this is what we go over with them. We stop multiple times through the presentation. We take questions. They take notes. I don't let phones out. I don't let computers out. I want them focused. And I'm pretty impressed. They were pretty good today. They were really into it because they want to know, because they want to apply, because they want to get results. It's like generation now. So they're like, give it to me because I want to get the ball rolling, and they deserve to. We don't sit on this process. It's time to get going. So those are our procedures that we go over with them. So I'm going to take this last slide here and talk a little bit about these admission plans and then turn it over to the other counselors. So I just want to bring this up because we do get questions about this. This lingo is not something everyone's familiar with. We have a couple different ways we can apply to college. And I want to reiterate, as much as you hear these early action, get it done early, it is not for everyone, okay? You do not have to apply early action. There are so many students doing it, though, that the edge is kind of going away, okay? There was a time where, like, hey, if you got it in by October 15th, November 1st, you had a little bit of a better shot. That's just not the case. The advantage is you get something back sooner. So if our students are meeting an October 15th deadline at Clemson versus the regular decision deadline of January, they're going to know sooner where they're at. Either they're getting in, they're denied, or they got deferred, meaning they're going to get pushed to the regular decision pool because the college wants a little more time. They want to maybe check out mid-year grades, and they just need a little more time with the application. So early action, biggest early action deadline's November 1st. We have about 8 schools, typically southern ones, that are October 15th, and that is going to creep up on some of these students. But we definitely have seniors doing October 15 schools. It comes very quickly. But November 1's our big one. The volume of seniors that are going through this process, so, you know, somewhere between 350, 400 seniors, the vast majority of them will have at least one 11-1 deadline. You know, we have the ones who are doing all regular decision. That's perfectly fine. But 11-1 comes pretty quick. And what that means is that by November 1st, their letters have to be written, their whole package has to be done. And when we send things out to colleges, when the counselors start sending, they don't just send to the 11-1, they send to the entire list. So it's like they're getting the job done for the whole list by 11-1. So the crunch here in October, especially those last 2 weeks, it's pretty intense. So that's early action. There's a program called restrictive early action. It's very rare, maybe 6 schools, 7 schools now have it. Restrictive early action is that there's a restriction. And what that means is you can only apply to that institution under early action, with the exception of applying to other public universities. I'll say that again because it is as confusing and somewhat ridiculous as it sounds. So institutions with restrictive early action say you can apply to us early action. but under the restriction that you will apply to no other private institutions under early action. If you get in, it's not binding, but you may not apply to any other private institutions. You can apply to public institutions under early action. I don't like it. Anytime you put the word restriction or restrictive up against a 17 or 18-year-old who's just trying to get into college is just unfair. So take it away, be early action or not, okay? That's how I feel about it. And it's pretty big names who have restrictive early action if you want to Google it. So I was pretty honest about how I felt about it. The big one, the ED, the early decision, that's that binding commitment. And we typically have, last year I think we had 52 students do early decision, which is a pretty good number in our class. Those are students who are signing an agreement. They're signing it, you're signing it, and their counselor is signing it, that if admitted to that institution under early decision, they will attend. So obviously they're only going to do ED to one school, and it's got to be a school they're pretty into, okay? This is a school they've been on the campus maybe twice. They're committed, they've seen it, they love it, this is it for them. What early decision does is it gives them a little bit of an edge, okay? Because most colleges that have early decision are taking more students from the early decision pool than the regular decision pool. Where it really matters tends to be pretty selective schools. So we do have students who are already planning to do early decision to Ivy League schools, to very selective institutions all over the globe. This is a big decision to make because if you're admitted, you're going, okay? And now we've got to talk finances. So the first thing I say to students applying early decision is, have you talked about this with your parents? Because this school is $85,000 a year, and you just told me you don't think you're eligible for any financial need, or financial aid. So you're looking at $85K a year with no assistance. Are you prepared for that if you're accepted? And then the face kind of turns white, and I go, I think it might be time to talk to your parents about this. So we are having very transparent conversations with them about making a decision this big. And then there are students, and then parents call and go, this is what we're doing. We're on board. This is how we're doing that. Okay. So ED, signed, sealed, and that's it. All right? And then there's the standard regular decision, which if you went to college and like us, ED and EA were like just getting going when I was, none of my classmates in the late 90s were applying early decision or early action. We were like sitting around this time of year, just enjoying senior year and going, we'll work on those apps in November. And that's how we did it. And we got them all in by Christmas, and that's regular decision. So regular decision is early January, deadlines of January 1st, which will never make sense to me because no one's operating that day. I like the January 5th deadlines. January 5th, January 10th, those are our regular decisions. So if you were an early action applicant that got deferred, you just got put in that pile. So now you're going to get looked at again with the regular decision crew, okay? But regular decision is great for kids who just aren't ready to do this right now. You know, it could be a variety of things. It could be like, it's fall, I'm really busy, I got sports, I got this, life's happening, and I'm just not ready to take this process on right now. But then there's a couple students where it's more like a readiness. I haven't even taken the SATs because I'm taking Algebra 2 this senior year, and I need to buckle up on my Algebra 2, so I'm going to take the SATs in December. So I don't even have scores. I don't even know where I stand. So they're going to wait till January. And then there's going to be students who, which is most common, have a blend. So they've done a couple early action and they're doing a couple regular decision because they're going to kind of wait and see how those early action results come back and kind of have those regular decision waiting in the wings. Maybe I'll submit some, maybe I won't. Let's see how I do in the early round. So most schools have a few options. There's schools that only have early decision or regular decision. You're going to see that at a lot of your selective schools. So if you're not doing the binding commitment, your deadline's in January, and then everything in between. Okay, so that's where we are. Again, November 1. Just send us good vibes, all right? Because we're going to be buckled down in the last 2 weeks of October, really hitting the ground running to get everything out, and we do every year. It works out every year. So, all right. So hang on to questions. If you're tuning in from home, thanks for listening in. Every slide has a link that you can pop into a computer, phone, any device to submit a question, and I will take all of those questions at the end. For now, I'm going to turn it over to Julie. I'll keep the slides here, and I'll bring you this microphone. All right, there you are.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me know if can you all hear me all right? All right, great. I want to let you all know that I've been working here for 20 years, and most of those years with Jen, and every year I learn something, and I just really appreciate her. So I just want to thank you, Jen, for all that you do.
I learned from you.
I learned from you. So I was thinking also, I was reflecting back on watching all of you, and it was 13 years ago. I was talking to my daughter this afternoon in the car, and I said what we were doing tonight, and I said it was 13 years ago when my first child went through the college process, and how things have changed dramatically. I mean, we sent things quite differently at that time, but some things haven't changed. And those are that we as parents really want to help our kids. We want to give them the best opportunities. We want to do everything that we possibly can. And I also want to make sure that I say that one thing I did remember is that 13 years ago, things we thought were just going smoothly and swimmingly, and my son was going to submit his essays by November 1st. October rolled around, and if you guys all remember Superstorm Sandy, no electricity at the end of October, and my son had not submitted. So we were taking the computer to the gym to charge, and we would alternate them, and we were, he was working on those essays, and that all happened during no power. So I'm not saying that's going to happen again. But please be prepared for any eventuality, because life happens, and that did happen, and that was very exciting for all of us. A little bit. One of the things that doesn't change is that the transition from high school into the adult world of college, or whatever your child is going to do next, is, I think, can be a little scary, both for you and for your child. And I think one thing to think about is this process that Mrs. Nectarline has been going through, Jen has been going through, can feel overwhelming. It overwhelms me every time I go through it, just detail and the process that goes through. It's also an evaluative process. And that evaluative process may be the first time that your child has ever gone through where they're being reviewed in terms of like the meaning of their activities in the community, their grades. Up to now, no one has seen their grades but you, them, the counselor. Now what we're doing is we're sending those grades out into the planet. And that would, even the best of us, I think, would be insecure when all of a sudden, for the first time, we're kind of being exposed to things that we don't know. So there's a vulnerability that's happening in senior year. They're leaving their home for the first time. They're, thinking about, will I make friends? Am I going to be successful? All those questions. And then there's the evaluative piece. There's the sadness of living. I don't want to go into it and make us all sad. There's wonderful things of newness and growth that are coming. But knowing that from the parent perspective can be helpful when you recognize that your child might be a little more cranky than they've been in the past. Who is this person who is going through this process that might be not what you're used to? And that may be because there are some things that they've never seen before. So our job, the professionals that work with them, is to guide them through and to help them and to teach them how to, at the next stage of their life, to advocate for themselves, to solve their own problems. And what we're asking you to do is to remember that's your job as well. As parents, we're going to work together. So what we'd ask that you do, we're going to make sure that your child gets through this fine. But when they come home and they don't know what to do, what we'd like you to do is to start thinking in terms of not saving them and figuring it out for them, but remembering that they will be doing this on their own, so we're going to use this as a learning experience. Every time that they open up an application and they get stuck, you don't have to fix it for them. One of the things that we ask that you might do is, number one, ask, how are you going to solve this? The best question you can ask as a parent, because it tells your child that you believe in them, that they have it within them to know the answers that exist out there. And if they don't know how to find it, they know resources out there that will help them. So when they come home and you start asking questions, because we all do, and they don't have an answer, no problem. How are you going to find out? And then when they don't know, they get stuck, let them figure it out. When they call college, when they have to call a college to find out, did you get this? I keep getting a notification that my transcript hasn't arrived, and sometimes we make that call with them. And they hang up and they haven't gotten the answer. That's fine. That's part of being an adult. You might say to them, you know what? You might have to call back. It's embarrassing. You don't want to do it. You had to wait online, but you're going to pick up that phone and you're going to call them. And that's part of learning how to interface with the adult world. It's uncomfortable, it's embarrassing, all of those things that we all went through, if you remember, if you remember, and I do, and it was uncomfortable. But it's going to make them feel better to go to office hours, to go to financial aid, the financial aid office, and ask why have they been unregistered for their classes because what's happened. And they find out that they didn't go to the financial aid office and sign that promissory note so that their financial aid did not get applied to their tuition, and so now they've been unenrolled. They need to know all those tools and to ask those questions and to get those emails. All right, that's what's coming their way. And you will not be part of that. That's what's going to happen. So one of the biggest jobs that we have as parents is both to be cheerleader, minimizing stress, and really telling our children and and the things that they do that we believe in them. They may not do it right the first time. In fact, we all can count on the fact that they may not do it the way that we would want them to do it the first time, but everyone in this profession at the college level and at the high school level see the same students, the same kind of people. They do it exactly the same, and we're going to help them. They're going to be fine. But we are used to them not quite asking the right way. We think we know what you mean and what we want. We're going to help you. So I really want to encourage you to be asking questions and letting them sit with it for a while. All right? If you have questions and your child responds with an answer and you know it's not right, and they seem pretty certain, no worries, give us a call. We can, either, maybe they are right, we don't know, right? So give us a call and we'll work with you and we'll figure it out with you, all right? But what we really want you to do is to say, hey, you might want to talk to your counselor. You might want to go see Mrs. Nectarline. All of these things are reasonable. You might want to call the college. So if your job is to, support them through this process, this is it. This is where we're getting them to adult decision-making and basically educated decisions, right? Research-based decision-making and finding out for themselves. The next part of that also includes, if you think about it a little bit, is very challenging to do, is to let them make mistakes. We are not going to let them fall apart and not do it, but it's okay if, again, they make a phone call and they don't get the right answer and hang up. No worries. We will figure it out, but we have to work together. The piece that I do want to remind you that you do have the power to help, and Mrs. Nectarline, Jen talked about it. I'm so used to talking to students. Mrs. Nectarline. Is the financial aid part, and that really is, your part. Students you have to report. This is, what your income is and all that. And we do recommend, and it's now state law, I believe, that everybody has to complete a federal, application for federal student aid, for financial student aid. So all of you will be part of that, and you will have your portion of it. That being said, if you have questions about financial aid, it is appropriate for you to call. It's almost better for you to call about the financial aid piece, because that is a gap that may be a bridge too far for your child to know exactly, the language that's being used. That's where you don't want to make a mistake. If you've, reported, not incorrectly, but you misunderstood part of the FAFSA or the CSS profile, which is for the private institutions and a few public, and you filled it out incorrectly and you got no aid, that's where you need to call the financial aid office and say, I can't imagine that, why, and they'll say, on this line, you filled this out, is that correct? And they will help you, and you can go back and resubmit. That happens a lot. So you really need to be thinking about that is the portion that you have. So outside of that, I really want to just thank you all for sending your children here to Hunterdon Central, because we've very enjoyed working with them, and we're really looking forward to seeing the next stage. I'm going to go on to the next slide, but I didn't want to have you miss that part, which is just the joy that it brings us to see this transition, because we saw them at 14, and now we're seeing them going on to the next stage. So it's like childhood to adulthood. So what a pleasure. The next slide is the alternatives to a four-year college. Now, many of you, most of you, all of you are here tonight because you're very confident that your child is going to apply and most likely go to a four-year institution. Or maybe going to a 2-year institution. So I want to make you aware of some of the supports that we have for alternatives. So in the fall, in November, there is going to be a whole week-long panel, a week-long series of panels that will show other options other than 4-year institutions. There will be, I believe, 1 or 2 sessions, maybe more, of RVCC coming, I'm sorry, I'm a little dry, RVCC coming and going through the application process only with seniors. So that's really important if you know that your child is going to go to RVCC first and then transition to a 4-year institution. That will just help incredibly just to go through that process. There's a panel for working adults that talk about getting jobs currently and what that's like, what's the world of work. There are military days. There's a lot of different options, so those are just some of the things that you can do after high school in addition to a 4-year institution. But there's also, outside of that, a gap year. And while we don't have a gap year day or anything like that, if your child is interested in taking some time off from high school, please have them come see us and have a plan in place, and we can talk about that as well, and that you should be talking to them as well. I think that's it. All right.
Good evening. I don't have a child that's applying to college right now, but I have to say I feel much better after listening to Mrs. Blake. I already feel more prepared, so thank you. So I'm going to talk briefly about college athletics. This only applies to a small percentage, of students, but we just do feel it's important to briefly touch on some information here. For students who are being recruited for D1 or D2 athletics, we assume at this point that they're already in contact with college coaches, that communication is open, they're being proactive, there's open lines of communication there. So, at this point in the process that is happening, we also assume that they have registered for the NCAA Eligibility Center. They are the ones that are going to determine whether your student is eligible to play D1 or D2 athletics. So they're looking at minimum GPA, there's a minimum standardized test score, there are certain core academics that they had to have completed. Okay, so we want to make sure they're registered and eligible. The requirements and all the eligibility information is on that center, but we also have access to that information. We have a pretty thick packet in our office, and we can sit down with students, look at their transcript. I've done this in the past where I go through each class that they've taken, look at the GPA, we look at the standardized test scores, and make sure kind of all of our ducks are in a row so that they're meeting that requirement. If your child is registered for the NCAA Eligibility Center as of last year as a junior, we automatically uploaded their transcript to the center and we sent that over. So they already have it. That's not something that has to be requested. Transcripts and proof of graduation will be sent to that center as well upon graduation, so at the end of senior year. Again, that does not have to be requested. That's something that we automatically do for all of our athletes who are registered and in that portal. If your child is a potential college athlete, and maybe that's just kind of something new that came up as of recent, and they're not registered, we just ask that you make that a priority. You create that account. If you kind of don't know where to go, they can, again, come see us. We can point them in that direction. And then just let us know, too, when they register so that we can get on sending their transcript right away to the Eligibility Center. You might be, when working with a coach might ask you for your unofficial or your official transcript. We can certainly, help accommodate that and get that transcript to you or to that coach. All of our students have access to their unofficial transcript on Genesis, so at any time they can download that and send that off. If a coach is asking for an official transcript from the student, we just ask that they email the counselor putting something in writing that they're asking for an official transcript to be sent to these specific coaches at these specific schools, and we're happy to do that. For Division 3, the requirements are a little bit different. You're going to want to contact those colleges to see what their eligibility requirements are. Each D3 school has its own standards, requirements, processes, et cetera. That can be pretty different from D1 and D2. Prospective student athletes, even if you're already being recruited, even if you've already verbally committed to a coach, you still have to go through the application process. Sometimes students think that just because they're having that conversation with the coach and they've committed and the coach says, yes, we want you, that those other parts of the process don't apply to them, but they still need to be admitted to the school. So we ask that they still follow that application process, and also they're going to follow our Hunterdon Central processes for getting transcripts, letters of rec, et cetera, to those schools. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Isabella Murin, who's going to talk a little bit about some housekeeping items.
Okay, I'm going to talk about some reminders, but they're important reminders. So if your child is considering changing or dropping a class this year, which many of our seniors have lots of options in their schedule this year, just because many of them have fulfilled most of their graduation requirements. Once they submit their transcripts to schools and are accepted to schools, they need to notify the schools if they're making a change to their schedule. The transcripts and the reporting does not automatically update. So we have a form for that we have them fill out, just kind of organizing how they can contact a school and what they should notify them when, and they would turn that back into us. But it is independent of us. They have to reach out to the schools themselves and notify them that they are making a change to their schedule. And that is because the colleges expect that you're going to finish the courses that you're reporting. So they need to have accurate record of that. In addition, they should be double checking their graduation requirements. This is something that we reviewed with them last year. We went through what was required of them, the course requirements, the credits. It is something that they should be familiar with. However, questions come up and sometimes things are missed. So they should be double checking that they've met all of their requirements. And if they have questions about that, they're always welcome to come and see their counselor just to make sure. We're going to be reviewing their transcripts again, but they should also be checking that they are correct. So just scanning through, making sure that all of the classes that they've taken here at Hunterdon Central are listed on their transcript and that they have the right amount of credits attached to them. Like Jacqueline was mentioning, this is especially important for for athletes that are registered for the NCAA. They need to make sure that they have a certain amount of credits just to be eligible to participate in athletics. So that is important. That they're checking that. So staying engaged and avoiding senioritis. So moving towards the springtime, it's very exciting. We start hearing about decisions, and you might feel like, oh, I can breathe a sigh of relief. I'm accepted. I know where I'm going. All is good in my world. I'm going to kick back my feet and just relax the rest of senior year. While we want it to be very exciting and we want them to have a good year and we want them to be stress-free and feel supported by us, it is really important that they stay on top of things, stay focused, and finish out the year strong. Colleges will ask for mid-year grades, and in addition, they're also going to be receiving their final grades at the end of the year. And this can impact decisions. So just as a reminder, offers of admission are conditional. Colleges can and will rescind offers if grades are dropping or students aren't meeting the requirements that they expected of them. So it's just really important that we encourage them to stay focused and stay strong through that end of the year finish line for senior year. So just to wrap up, staying on top of their schedule, keeping their grades up, finishing strong, but also enjoying this time, their last year with us, and getting through the process, and just knowing that we're all here to support them. There's a lot of people with a lot of experience that are happy to help if they have questions. So, and I believe I'm turning it back over to you.
All right, thank you, guys. I got it, thank you. Oh, no, you're fine, you're fine. All right, thank you all so much. Let me get resituated here. This is, if you joined us late, I'm nursing a knee that got a little angry standing from 9 to 2 today presenting. So I'm sitting here at the official table to get through this so I can be back on my feet tomorrow from a knee injury. So lots of good information that you heard from Julie and Jacqueline and Carly. Just some things that we think are really important to mention as we're going through this process. You know, it's not all just the nuts and the bolts of the process. It's everything from, you know, the mental part and the emotional part of getting through this to like what we just talked about. You know, you want to come in to the office in January and drop a class. It's semester changeover, and it's a popular time to do that in late January when we switch semester 1 to 2, because, you know, you got into a couple schools and you're feeling good. It's time to kick your feet up and you want to drop class. Well, guess what? You got into those colleges on contingency of completing the classes on your transcript. So when that AP calculus, now it's usually never that extreme, but I'm just giving an extreme example, becomes a withdrawal, that's going to be a problem at a school that just accepted you to a chemical engineering program. You see, like that, I'm giving an extreme example, but that's what we're talking about, is when they come in because they got excited, they got in schools, and now they're like, oh, I think I'm going to take another study hall or try for an early out, and they're dropping academic classes. And when they applied to college and they put on the Common App, these are my senior year classes, and this is my transcript, you're basically almost giving a contract. This is what I'm going to show you upon acceptance, upon enrollment, if I come to you, that these are the classes I took and finished in a satisfactory way. And when they're missing, that's a problem, okay? So we do ask them to please reach out to the schools to ask them, would it be okay? Would it impact my admission offer if I drop this class? So these are all things we want you to mention. And when we hand them that form and say, you're going to reach out to your schools, sometimes some turn around and go, I'll stay in the class. So it gets interesting in late January. And then, you know, you heard Jacqueline talk about athletics, and definitely impacts a lot more of our students than you think. I mean, we have obviously, you know, some athletes going to the Division 1 and 2 level, but we have a lot of great athletes playing at the Division 3 level where, you know, this college athletics thing is not, it's a big part of their life there, but it's not quite the commitment of D1 or D2, and D3 is a great opportunity. So definitely seek us out if we can help with any of that. You heard Julie talk about supporting your child. No one else, you know, can, from the senior team is quite there. Jen Wagner, our supervisor, has been there, and it's just getting closer and closer for me. And I will officially have a Hunterdon Central student next year, which is just wild to think about. So, yeah, a lot of good information there. Let it all kind of sink in. These pathways that Julie was talking about, you know, that is just a sheer response to our demographic. We had to do more. We were already doing things. We were already bringing in the community college, doing application workshops, holding a military day, but we really increased that programming last fall, and we had tremendous participation in the fall. We had a business leader panel. We had a career workforce development from RVCC come in. We did application workshops, 2 rounds of that, the military program. I know I'm missing a few things, but it was a full week of programming, and you know, it's trying to capture those students that, you know, might not be paying attention to my emails and things like that, but we seek them out and say, guys, you know, we do a lot here with the 4-year college. It's a process, but we want to show you what all this is about. We want you to have something after high school. So a lot of kids got a benefit out of that. And if you have a 4-year college-bound student who's like, you know, maybe I'll listen in. Maybe it will be RVCC for me. Applying to RVCC is free. And we bring in the enrollment coaches, 2 of them. They run the workshop, and they apply literally on the spot and get it done. So that's all coming in November. All right. Last major slide from me, and then we're going to take some questions. I got several rolling in on our sheet here. A little bit about financial aid. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. It is an entirely different profession than that of a school counselor, and I remind students and parents of that because we do get questions from students like, can you sit with me and do my FAFSA? And we can't. That is going to be a very individual family matter. That's very personal information about finances, income, assets, things like that. So we bring in an expert. Our financial aid night is going to be on Thursday, October 9th. It is a fully virtual program. So like our folks that are watching from home right now, that's everybody's going to be watching. It's going to be a webinar. A link will come out, a public link. You join as webinar attendees, so no one sees you. You're just webinar attendees. You'll see our speaker. She's fantastic. She's been doing our financial aid night for as long as I've been here. So this will be her 18th year doing our financial aid night. She's from Monmouth University. She's in the financial aid office. It is her career. It's her profession. It's not ours. We can't speak to the level she can about financial aid. So she will do a webinar starting at 6:30, a Zoom webinar. So again, keep an eye on your emails. Links will come out for that. That'll be on our website. And that'll be, again, kind of like this, another 90-minute webinar, a 90-minute program where she'll go through financial aid, the FAFSA, and there'll be a chance for you to submit questions through the Q&A. You can begin applying for financial aid in October. That's been a little messy the last few years. If you have older children or you've just, again, watched the news and higher education, the FAFSA did an overhaul 2 cycles ago, and it got a little bit delayed on coming out, but we are expecting an October launch this year of the FAFSA. The FAFSA is completed for your child's freshman year. So I've actually had a couple parents reach out to me in the last week or so and go, I'm filling out the FAFSA right now, and I go, well, stop there, because you're not filling out the FAFSA, because your child's still in high school. If you are filling out the FAFSA, you are filling out the 2026-2027 FAFSA, the FAFSA that represents your child's freshman year of college. So if you already dug around the FAFSA.gov site and you got I'm getting ahead, you're doing the 25-26 FAFSA, that's for the current academic year we're in. So you got to wait till the new one comes out. So I stopped a couple parents in their tracks and said, you're doing the wrong one, okay? 26-27, child's freshman year of college. That FAFSA will launch next month. Our financial aid seminar, Thursday, October 9th, 6:30 virtual. You can begin now by making sure all your 2024 documents are in order. That's what you're going to need, because obviously we're still in 25. So you're going to be gathering all your 2024 documents to prep for that FAFSA completion. Deadlines for FAFSA can vary. I will say, as close to the launch as possible, I would get it done. It's a great task for parents to work on while your kids are still actively working on their applications, but you will see that there are colleges with FAFSA deadlines. When they are varies, but maybe in your head you align your FAFSA deadline with your student's first deadline. That might be October 15th. That might be November 1. And it doesn't have to be that way, but it's a great thing to get that thing in while the student's application's being considered. Hey, they might get in early action. The next place they're going is to the financial aid office to be evaluated. So if there's no FAFSA on file, that process is now delayed. So I would definitely encourage you to work on the FAFSA as soon as possible. There is absolutely help screens, help numbers. We will not be able to be the help for that. You're going to have to go through the government websites and helplines for that. And we have students who do those. Julie was talking about making those calls. I've had a couple students say, look, my parents, they don't know how to do this, or maybe there's a language barrier. So I've had some students make those tough calls to the financial aid office and say, Mrs. N, what do I say? And we'll kind of coach and guide them through that so that they know what they're talking about. Those are tough. So this is a great place to come in if you can, but that process is coming. We will run our very well-known local scholarship program in February. That local scholarship program has been in existence here longer than I've been here, and it has grown tremendously. We have a very generous community. We have a really wonderful group of people in this community that continuously give scholarships to our students. These are little ones. These are going to be your 500s, your thousands. These are, but cumulatively, last year it was about a $170,000 program, and we usually usually post somewhere between 80 and 85 scholarships. So, you might not even realize some of these businesses, people, there's memorials, all sorts of scholarships that are being given from the local community. So they're little. They do mean a lot, though, because they're local kind of homegrown awards, and they all culminate in a really wonderful senior awards night in June. So outside of that, though, scholarship searching. So how are we getting the money to help pay for this? So we are going to start guiding our students through that late November, early December. Our big push right now is the process. We got to get them applied. We got to get applications in. And yes, we have our students that'll do regular decision, but right now our focus is that big volume that we're up against with November 1st, November 15th, December 1st, those big first deadlines. And then we're going to shift into kind of what we call money season. At that point in time, a lot of families are filing the FAFSA. Some students are starting to hear back, and they're thinking, all right, how am I going to pay this bill? And we also need to give them something to do. Because come December and January, now we're approaching the semester, now the weather's cold, maybe a little senioritis is trickling in, and we got something for you, okay? And it's scholarship searching. So we give them websites, we give them places to go, we give them different things they can do to find scholarships, because you've got this bill, okay? You got this tuition bill, and it's gonna come down a little bit from the institutional money. That's always going to be the big bulk. It's like, you got the Seton Hall, I don't know, 60, 70K a year, whatever it is. Okay, we're going to give you 25K to bring it down. You're probably not going to get 25K a year from some outside external source. So you're always going to drop the most from institutional money, but there's still a gap. Still 50K to pay, or is it 45? So where's that coming from? All right, so maybe it's 529s or savings or someone, but we're still looking for more, and that's what we call the external scholarship. So we have websites, we have all sorts of things they can be doing through the winter, applying for scholarships, okay? And then we have our school website's got a couple resources. Again, this is all gonna get posted. You can just go right to the central website. We've got all sorts of scholarship information there, okay? All right, I think that wraps it up. So again, I'll leave this link up here. I do have a few questions. We're right where we want to be, about 10 minutes to go, so we can get you guys out of here by 8 p.m. But I have a lot in here. A couple are going to be certainly more one-on-one specific for the students, so I'll save those. If I didn't get to your question in the submissions, please reach out to your student's counselor or myself. We'd be happy to help you. But there's one I want to get to, and then I want to go to the audience, because the one that came in, I think is really interesting. We don't touch on it at all, but it is a hot topic, and that is, how does AI work in this process, okay? And I've thought about this so much because I've been doing my own research over the last couple years, and I did something really wild this summer. I went back to school for the first time in 17 years, and I took grad classes, and something good came out of it. I earned a higher credential, and that was pretty cool. But I learned so much about AI this summer, and I have so much, I have a lot of opinion about it, okay? I absolutely think it has its place, but I also learned how to screen it really well, and I downloaded a few of my own tools. I got a little savvy, and in the last couple of years, as I've attended a conference that I go to every year, which I'm actually going to next week, it's the largest conference on college admissions in the country, an organization I'm a very proud member of and a leader of, and I'm going to that conference next week, and of the 120 educational sessions, I think there's 25 about AI. I mean, I can't get away from it. It is huge. It's huge in higher ed. It's huge in this process. So where does it fit? So what's the parent ask? Can they use it to help improve or refine their college application material? I mean, the AI is not going to fill out the Common App. You have to go in. You have to do the work. I personally, just for the effort I've put into getting to know it, I can absolutely tell when an essay is written by AI, because I've read thousands and thousands of college essays in the 21 years I've been doing this. So I feel pretty confident I can do that, and I am absolutely going to tell the student to circle back and work on it, because I think that they can absolutely put the work into a 650-word college essay. That is the only piece in a process that feels a little bit out of control at times, because you're sending all this stuff to a college and like you're giving it to them, and then you're kind of like letting them do the rest of the work. And for these students, 17 and 18-year-olds who want to have control over kind of everything, that feels really out of control. Like, you submit these apps and you have no idea what's going to happen. We can use the data, we can use the professional judgment, we can do our best to say, you've got a shot of getting in, or this is going to be a reach. But the college essay is truly one of the only parts of this process where you have total control. So you have to take advantage of it. Write your own words. You get 7 prompts in the Common App. The 7th one every year is topic of your choice. The freedom to write your college essay is just tremendous. So I asked them, I know it's tough to sit there at a white screen, go, where do I go with this? Well, look at the prompts. Do a little work. We've given them tools in junior year to start thinking and brainstorming. Don't let AI write your college essay. You know, if you're going to run it through a Grammarly or Screener, like, that's fine. But I can tell, I can't speak for my colleagues, but we've got a pretty good handle on it, and we're going to be honest with them. This is not yours, okay? Where does it help? Well, I started actually talking about it in my summer workshops. You know, in the activities section of Common App, I give a lot of tools and tricks in my Common App guide about how to do the activities section. But ultimately, you know, you had 150 characters to describe your activities. Guys, if you want to just throw this in ChatGPT, I'm okay with it. Let them help you, but use my guide and ChatGPT together. Because even if I tell you not to, you're going to. Because you and I are different eras and different generations, and it's in your world far more than it's in mine. You know, it's helping me build recipes. It's doing a lot more for these kids. So I know it's there. So to answer that question, I'm sorry, it's a very long answer. I give very long answers sometimes. They know me. It's there. I can't get away from it. They're going to use it, but we're going to try to catch it where we don't think it's working to their advantage. All right. Oh my goodness, I have a lot, but let me go to the audience. What do you guys have? Yes.
So for filling out the FAFSA, I've been being advertised to through social media or whatever by companies that say, if you make these mistakes filling out your FAFSA, it can cost you a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you fill it out right. Is there going to be something that you guys provide on October 9th that's going to go over those things?
Sure. So the question was for those who couldn't hear or those at home about filling out the FAFSA, and you're getting, things are coming at you about making sure you do the FAFSA right, or I don't know, I thought you were going to say this, companies offering to take your money to fill out your FAFSA, or, it can be costly if you fill it out wrong. Are we going to get into that on financial aid night? So Kristen, she definitely talks about the FAFSA and filling out the FAFSA. She's not going line by line, but she is going over factual information, and you can put things in the Q&A. I'm going to say, though, to me, the FAFSA overhaul made it a lot more straightforward. I think there's one way to fill out the FAFSA, and it's honestly and it's accurately. It's going to catch things. It's going to audit. It's going to do things that are going to fix it if you did it wrong. Like, you know what I mean? I don't think there's like a strategic way to do it to report those finances. Does that kind of help? Yeah, it's kind of like college admissions and writing essays and the whole process. There's hundreds of third-party websites telling you how to fill out the Common App. Well, we wrote a guide that you fill it out as a central student. It asks very specific information about your high school. You can go over to the other websites and take their advice. You can collectively take all the advice you find. But when it comes to the FAFSA and financial aid and money and numbers, to me, it's pretty black and white. Like, it's pretty straightforward. But yeah, YouTube's got videos. Colleges will post links and videos to help you. But to me, it's pretty straightforward. So, yes, right here.
When the school is making a decision on a scholarship for a student, are they using what's on their application or also the FAFSA?
Great question. So when schools are making decisions about scholarships, which are merit money, scholarships, free money, you've earned it, are they looking at the application or the FAFSA? They should only be looking at the application. Should, okay? So I can't tell you what happens behind closed doors. I mean, why a college would require a FAFSA for merit-based scholarships is just beyond me, but they do. And it drives students crazy and parents crazy. Well, but you're basing the money on our merit, not our need. So our families that can't demonstrate financial need, their kids who've worked their tails off and have a 4.2 and took 7 AP classes and have a 1,500 SAT don't have need, but they're not getting rewarded because they don't show financial need. So this is a tough one. But my answer to that is they should only be looking at the application, the academics, the activities, the leadership, the talent, the merit. But the reality is that there are offices that are not, and they are looking at the financial need. So to me, need and merit should be two distinctly separate types of need. I will say, though, over my years here, I don't see that a huge issue. I mean, the kids who've earned it, the merit, are getting it. But and then there's colleges that just don't give merit. They're really heavy need-based colleges, like our heavy selective privates with massive endowments don't give any merit. Our Ivies don't give merit, so it's all need-based. But the kids who deserve the merit, who've put the work in, are going to get it. I see coming from the schools. So I hope that answers your question. Yes.
My daughter has some dual enrollment classes.
Okay.
Does she have to go online and get her transcripts from those colleges?
Okay, so dual enrollment, which is really becoming quite popular and a great opportunity for our students to take classes here while earning college credit. I'm going to be honest, well, the course has got to finish for them to have that college credit, for them to have that transcript. Our students typically, when they go through dual enrollment, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, become essentially a student on the rolls at that college. So they have like an ID number, an account. At the end of the year, they now have a transcript there. So typically, though, this is kind of happening after school lets out, so I don't hear a whole lot about it, but students will usually log on to RVCC or log on to Seton Hall, wherever they did the dual enrollment, and request that transcript. Do you have something to add?
Yeah, so what will happen is that none of it will take place until after a child actually enrolls in a college.
Yeah.
So at that point, you will have to send the transcripts of that credit to be given or ascribed credit, or the child will be ascribed, credit. At that point, every school is going to be different about what they accept and what they don't accept. Sometimes it's just general education credit. Sometimes it's a major specific, so they're not going to be able to accept, calculus because you have to take their calculus or whatever it is. So it's really a one and done. So let's say your child has 2 different colleges. If it's a dual enrollment and they have a grade on our transcript, you don't need that transcript for the application process. That being said, there are always exceptions. It always depends. But generally, as a rule, just our transcript until they enroll.
Yeah. Great question. All right, so we're just about at 8. I'll take one more. Anything else out there? I did get a lot of different things in here. Okay, I just wanted to hit on this one because this is a good about sharing the trends in the top colleges. Is it possible to see and access a full list? I don't have a comprehensive list, but I pull it from SCORE, if that makes sense. So you can go on to SCORE and see the data for any college where we've ever had students apply, going back to, I think I have it right now, going back to 2019, giving you about 6 cycles of data to really see, comprehend where our students fall, the overall graphs of who's getting in by GPA and scores and all of that. So SCORE is kind of our powerhouse of data for all that. So, wow, thank you guys. Great questions submitted. Thanks for being just a fantastic audience. Thank you guys for listening from home. It is a process. Please reach out if we can do anything, but put them in the driver's seat, all right? Put your students there. They can do this. It's very manageable, but we will be here to guide them along the way. Thank you all very much for coming out tonight. We appreciate it.